Welcome to our Vision series of webinars. Today you will be hearing from our CEO and Duality co-founder, Alon Kaufman, as well as our Chief Business Officer, Michael Hughes. As always, our goal with these webinars is to keep them short, as we know how critical time is for all of us, as well as conversational. Not a complete slide-free zone, but we focus more on the discussion versus the slideware. Please use the chat function to ask questions at any time during this session. Again, we want to keep this as interactive as possible. Now, without further ado, welcome to Revolutionizing the Data Sharing Landscape, Data Sharing in a Privacy Age. Over to you, Alon.
Thank you, Lucy, and welcome everyone, and thank you for participating. Indeed, we live in an age today that data is dominating the way businesses operate. Companies that know to utilize data and to monetize on it and derive insights out of it are already leading the digital world today. But we also are coming towards an inflection point where companies that know to collaborate and work together on their data and work in a collaborative way are the companies that will create actually exponential value beyond what's actually being generated today. Just imagine this world if we could have dealt with this COVID pandemic in a way that countries could have shared data between themselves, identifying trends and understanding how the pandemic is spreading, or if even pharmaceutical companies could have worked together in developing drugs or developing vaccines. Now, obviously, this is not easily done because of privacy concerns and also because of protecting your business considerations, but that's exactly what Duality is basically coming to offer. We're enabling this world where companies can work on their data, derive insights out of it in a way that they can collaborate and still protect the data, protect privacy, and protect the business edge they have. Now, before we talk about the future, let's look a second at a few waves in this evolution of data. And going 20, 30 years back, this whole world of digitization started by first companies investing a lot in collecting data, aggregating data, and that's in many sense what one would call the golden age of databases. So companies invested the time in collecting data and making sure the data is accessible and very well organized. But the next thing was, okay, we have all this data. How do we actually use it? How do we actually get any value out of it? And that's where the age of BI, business intelligence, and analytics started. So let's say if you're a simple sales organization and you have all this data and you want to know, okay, how many sales do I have per geography? How many sales do I have of a product, given a specific product? Or how many sales is the sales rep doing? That was the age where BI and analytics showed you what's actually happening in your organization. The next frontier was actually going beyond what we have to the future. So instead of just showing you data that you have, it was looking into trends or predictions into the future. So not only trying to understand how many sales per product you have, but maybe trying to predict how many sales you're going to have, or using machine learning to actually improve your current offering or improve your sales strategy. And that's basically the age of machine learning and data science where we are. And the next frontier now is going from working on the data that organizations have to data that is in the possession of other organizations. So not only analyzing your own data, but also working in a collaborative way. And so the fourth wave, of where we are evolving is really this ability not only to analyze data, not only to understand the situation of the organization, but to work in a collaborative way with other organizations. Now, to emphasize the importance of data, we like to look at this kind of slide, which shows that in just the last decade, the biggest companies in the world, and this is a graph according to market cap, just a decade ago, the leading companies in the world were all oil companies or retail companies. And today, the leading companies in the world are all companies that are driven by data. And these companies, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, and so on, are companies that know to not only collect more data, but actually to derive insights out of it. And their data science or data analytics strategy is what actually allowed them in the last decade to jump up and become the leading companies in the world. This has been done by the ability to really utilize data in a more proficient way, using all kinds of techniques like machine learning and artificial intelligence and so on, all in this realm that is called data science. And it's not only their ability to use the data, but also the ability to use today data science platforms that are easily accessible in cloud environments and so on. So what enabled these companies in the last decade to really jump up and become leading companies is the ability to master their own data, to derive insights out of it, and basically any operational decision today in these leading organizations is done by utilizing their data. Now, the next frontier where exponential value can be created is actually if these companies could actually not only work on their own data, but utilize data of even competitions, definitely partners, and so on. Now, this directly runs into challenges of sharing data and collaboration, because many of these companies cannot share data or because of privacy rules or because of security concerns, or simply because they want to protect their own data. And in order to really address this problem, one has to wrap this world allowing to collaborate in a privacy-preserving manner. So if we look at it at a broader picture, there's this ability to analyze data that the world has, some companies at least, or the world is already mastering. But in order to do the next leap, in order for these companies that have actually utilized this world of data science to maintain their leadership, in order for them to stay leaders or to become what we call a data-driven enterprise, they have to now collaborate with others. But in order to collaborate, they also have to find ways to collaborate while protecting all the privacy of the data or protecting their own competitive edge or business secrets. And in order to do this, Duality has built a platform that enables our partners and customers to basically analyze data that they have and that other organizations have, or run queries against it, or develop machine learning models, all with a goal for the organizations not only to utilize their own data, but to utilize data from other organizations in a way that protects their privacy and drives to powerful insights. Now, in order to really hear a little bit of what our customers are doing and the use cases that they're addressing, I want to ask Michael Hughes, our Chief Business Officer, to share some of our customer challenges and what are the things that we are solving for. Please, Michael.
Great, thanks, Alon. I appreciate the time, everybody. Thank you for joining. You know, given what Alon just shared as the backdrop, and when you read the press today where organizations are talking about the desire to be more data-driven, what does that actually mean when you realize that the data that most organizations have, that they're housing inside of their environment, be it in the cloud or on-prem, is unused? That data is just simply stored and secured for privacy and regulatory purposes, but it is not used for any business purpose. Within banks, they say that data, the percentage of data that is unused, is between 95 and 98%. But what if there is a way by which organizations could actually unleash that data to the benefit of their organization and to the benefit of their customers, the benefit of their patients? And what this would involve is leveraging data that could traditionally not be used because of privacy or security concerns. Ultimately, imagine if you could bring to bear 100% of the data that's inside of your organization to make better informed decisions that will impact your business, impact the quality of care that you may be giving to patients in a healthcare environment, improving the loyalty of your customers while increasing revenue. When you think about it, this notion of collaboratively working on data either internally or collaborating securely, as Alon indicated, with other companies, really has lots of potential benefits. But first, there's the realization that to do that, I really need to ensure that I'm not compromising my organization's proprietary information. I need to ensure that I'm not conveying any information that's personally identifiable or may reveal personal health information. And what that ultimately means is that in order to become a more fully data-driven enterprise, I need to ensure that I am compliant with all the regulation, I'm compliant with my internal policy, and I'm preserving the privacy of all the relevant data. Because ultimately, it is the reputational risk, and yes, the regulatory risk, which is why it is that all this individual data is being housed but not used. A couple examples of where this really benefits humanity in some respects and organizations individually is there's two examples that come to mind. What if you are a healthcare provider and you have an oncology wing that actually has a small number of patients with a very rare form of cancer that they provide care to on a yearly basis. Unfortunately, the data that organization actually has, because the data set is so small, is relatively not effective at improving quality of care for the individual patients that they have. And it's certainly not enough for the pharmaceutical companies to be in a position to be able to understand how it is that they can maybe able to reformulate their drug that can cure or mediate that rare condition in a substantive way. But what if there's a way, because across the healthcare network, there may be 20, 30 oncology organizations that actually have the same number of patients or approximately the same number of patients on a yearly basis. And what if there's the means by which you could actually pull that data in a privacy preserving way and perform analysis on it? That would be to the benefit of everyone. Quality of care would improve. The pharmaceutical that could actually be made or that is being made to help with that particular condition could be improved. But today you can't do that. Organizations are not doing that because the information itself is very sensitive, containing lots of health information. Another example of that is from a financial crime perspective. What if banks could work together or insurance companies to reduce the likelihood of fraud that would be occurring within their organizations? Highly sensitive questions would need to be asked, but what if that could be done in a privacy preserving way? Alon, if you could move on to the next slide. Thank you. So obviously there are obstacles with why organizations are not doing this today. It's complex, first of all. It's complex sharing data within an organization. It's complex sharing that data within an organization because different areas of the organization may have different databases. They may have different deployment topologies. They may be putting data in the cloud. They may have it on-prem. How do I actually collaborate using that various set of environments inside of my organization where there may be regulatory reasons why I can't currently, but much less, how do I actually do that across companies or where, in particular, where those companies may actually cross country boundaries, where each country may have a different privacy set of regulations that need to be adhered to. When we look at it even further, there's the question of what data can I share? What data should I share? And again, when you think about this, think of it from the perspective of the internal mindset within my company or the external mindset across companies. But what if there is a way by which you are able to share all of the relevant data without concern for privacy due to the fact that you would know that the underlying intellectual property that data might contain would be protected, the underlying individual health information or personal identifiable information might be shared. Imagine what you would actually be in a position to do across organizations, across countries, while doing so in a way that ensures compliance with the privacy regulations that exist in these various geographies. And then, of course, not to overlook this, to do so in a way while you ensure that you have the appropriate and necessary consent of the individuals with whom you're sharing that data. Alon, if you could move on to the next slide. So really, the question is not when organizations are going to deploy an enterprise-ready data sharing platform. It's just a matter, it's just when, right, is the question. Not a matter of if, it's just when. So in order to do this, to be able to share data on an as-needed basis while ensuring compliance with both external regulations, and internal policies. Organizations are looking to dramatically improve business outcomes because they are able to make more informed decisions by leveraging additional data that was previously locked away. They're doing so in a way that allows a governance framework that makes it easy to show how data is being used. And the use cases associated with this are varied, but are having a definitive impact on revenue while actually reducing risk. These include things along the lines of the examples that I shared with you previously, the oncology example, the fraud example. It also includes where organizations are, like banks, are being able to provide more targeted offers to clients by sharing information with third-party partners about what is being spent on goods and services without actually revealing anything about the individual, therefore making the ability for the offer to be very, very specific to that individual's spending habits. This notion of reducing the instance of fraud across banks or insurance companies by enabling those organizations to ask questions about individuals that might be engaging in fraudulent activity without revealing anything about the person suspected of behavior. I'll pass this back to Alon now to talk a little bit further about this, but the good news is that there is a way to do this today. Alon, back to you.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, so to summarize, the idea here behind what we're talking about is really allowing you and your organization to think beyond utilizing the data you have today and thinking in a collaborative way, thinking about networks, thinking about working with partnerships, of course, in a privacy-preserving way. So up until now, basically data sharing is very binary. You all share the data and you disclose the data at the same time, or you decide to protect your data and don't share it. What we offer in here is a way to share, to work together, and at the same time protect the data. Just imagine what type of data, what type of analysis, what type of partners would you be willing to work with if you wouldn't be concerned about privacy challenges or about protecting your business secrets. This, of course, is something that today is not being done easily, and the platform and the offering and the vision that Duality is providing will enable you to get to that next step, as we call it, the fourth wave of data utilization, where really allows companies to start to create exponential value out of their data. With this kind of thought, I'd like to end and pass it over to Lucy for some Q&A.
Great, and yes, we have a few questions in the chat. So the first one is, the pet space is a little confusing. Do you have guidance on when FHE is the most appropriate solution? And do you offer more capabilities beyond FHE?
Yes, very relevant question. Of course, the word pet is privacy enhancing technologies. And there's a bunch of other technologies out there. I'll just call out some of them by name if you're familiar with them, like utilizing synthetic data, which is basically emulating real data so that the data itself is actually not real, but you can still process it and it doesn't disclose any private information. There's other means of using trusted hardware, and of course, methods like for homomorphic encryption or multi-party computation. So this is a new world. These new pets basically have been around just for the last 3-4 years, and there is a lot of confusion in the market. What I would like to say is that, as anything, and in many cases, you have to use the right tool for the right solution. Homomorphic encryption or fully homomorphic encryption, as the question asked, is really the method that guarantees that the data itself stays totally encrypted, never exposed to the entity that is analyzing it. So that has the highest level of security measure. In terms of analysis, it has the most accurate level, and it's specifically useful if you running analytics on an individual level or want to guarantee the control of who is exposed to the answers and who sees them. Other areas may not require this very hard level of homomorphic encryption. And indeed, our platform offers other methods like federated learning, like using multi-party computations and a bunch of other methods, and on our roadmap, an extensive set of all these privacy-enhancing technologies. Duality's goal at the end of the day is to solve our customers' problems, and we use the right technology to do it, of course, maintaining the security level that we require, and at the same time, the accuracy and data science capabilities that are required to solve the business problems.
Okay, great. The next question is, how do you ensure that the data is not only protected from a privacy perspective, but also from a security perspective?
Alon, I'll go ahead and take this one.
Sure.
So as Alon alluded to, typically when organizations are determining how they're going to share data, they either encrypt it all or they don't. They share it all or they don't. And what we're advocating is the way by which, because sometimes you don't need to encrypt it all, you do so because some of the data contained in that data set is sensitive. It's rare that all of the data is sensitive. The examples could be who's the person's name, what's their address, what's their social security number, what's their underlying health condition. That needs to be kept encrypted and secure. But again, if that's in a big data set or another data set that contains other information, all that data doesn't need to be secured. So what it is that our technology enables organizations to do is to protect the data that needs to remain private, while securing the entire data set. This enables you to do the things that Alon was alluding to, which is perform computations on encrypted data, get relevant and accurate results without actually revealing the underlying data source itself that needs to be kept private. So we differentiate from the two. Most organizations that have traditionally only thought about it as encrypt versus not encrypt, and this provides you a hybrid alternative.
Okay, another question is, what are the primary markets that you're working in?
Cool, I'll jump on this one as well, Alon. So as you might imagine, highly regulated industries, such as healthcare, such as pharma, such as financial services, where there is sensitive data, PII, PHI, and large amounts of regulation around what information can be shared and how it can be shared, are great areas to deploy technology like Duality's. We're also finding in non-regulated industries where, at least from a PII perspective, where you may be a manufacturer and you have highly sensitive information about your product or good that you may be working on with partners that can make that part or good better. Obviously, there's the need to share a certain amount of information, but not the IP, right? So this is another great example where you can deploy a technology like Duality's to help better the business, improve the business outcome while keeping the data that needs to remain sensitive private.
Well, since our goal was to keep these webinars short, I think this is a good place to stop. If we did not answer your questions, we will follow up with responses via email later today. And I'd like to thank you. Can we move on to the thank you slide? There we go. If you'd like to meet with members of our solutions team for a one-to-one demo or to discuss your data needs, please go to the link on the screen. Don't worry if you don't have time to jot it down. I'll email you later today with a link for the demo and also a link to this recording. So thank you for participating in our webinar series, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Michael. Thanks, everyone.